I think today for this section, we're going to have really a very full house. We are in the beautiful country of Tanzania, and this discussion is about Tanzania and, of course, the rest of Africa as well. So I started getting a request that we might probably need more chairs, but because of the way this setup is built, so we will allow some of the delegates and the dignitaries to first of all have their seats, and then we will bring in the participant from the BBT program to join us afterwards. So we should expect really a very full house and nice conversations around this discussion. So on that note, let's start. My name is John Agbola. I'm going to be your MC for these sections, the Abe Palabi, and we're going to be discussing about the horticultural sector in Tanzania, and that's how that presents opportunities for youth, for women, and how we can accelerate this as well. So this section is not about panel discussion. So forget this chair for one moment. Of course, we will have people seated here. But forget it for now. And then look at it from the perspective of you coming to ask questions and to ask questions and also to make some insights or discussions about what we are going to be saying. So I will pass around the mic. I will instigate you to ask questions if you don't want to ask one. I will pause our audience in between. And so how do you say welcome in Swahili? Karibu. Please come on stage. I'd like to put you on spot. Come. Let's start with you on a very high note. Jambo. Is it Jambo? Jambo. Yes, yes.
A very good morning to everyone this morning.
Swahili.
Habarini za asubuhi.
So how do you say the agriculture? Can you tell us a little bit about agriculture in Tanzania, the horticultural sector in Swahili, in 1 minute? Wrap it up.
Kilimo.
Kilimo.
Yes.
Kilimo ni farmer?
Kulima.
Ni kulima. Ni kilimo, ni kulima. We're going to talk about farmers, about agriculture. So I ask you.
Tutazungumzia kilimo na wakulima.
Okay, what does that mean?
We will be talking about agriculture and farmers.
Excellent. Please, a round of applause for my very important guest. So we start on that note with our lead host. Please come on stage, Mark. And yeah, I will allow you to introduce our speaker, and then we take it forward from there. And
yeah, sure. My name's Mark Blackett. I lead the EMEA network. We look globally at the best approaches to accelerate SME growth. We want to set up an EMEA Tanzania, and you're welcome to talk to me afterwards. But this is not about EMEA today. This is about learning from the horticulture sector in Tanzania. And one of the best people to tell you about that to start with is Anthony from Taha, who leads, he's the deputy CEO, isn't he? So Anthony, come here, tell us about, what you see as the opportunities, but also the challenges, because we want to learn from failure as well as success. So I hand it over to Anthony. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Good morning, all. Habari za asubuhi. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Mark, for organizing this meeting. Yeah, again, I'm from Taha. As you know, Taha is an apex body transforming the horticultural industry in Tanzania. So just in brief about the salient issues in the horticultural industry in the country. So horticulture for about a decade now has continued to be a dominant force in the agricultural transformation in the country. in terms of production, in terms to contribution to food security, nutrition security, incomes, but also having youth engaging in various activities in the value chains. In Tanzania, we produce about 7.5 million tons of horticultural crops, fruits, vegetables, spices. Those are actually top three, but we are also having flowers and horticultural seeds. The 7.5 million tons is equivalent to around 26% of total agricultural production in the country. So you can see horticulture is the second most important industry or important subsector after food crops. And in terms of food security, and this is not widely discussed, that horticulture has also a strong bearing to food security. We are producing around 17 million tons of food crops in the country. We do have cereals and we do have non-cereals. Horticulture is in the non-cereals part. Now, for non-cereals, in the food security basket in the country, we are having potatoes. We produce around 1.7, 1.8 million tons a year, and we do have banana. Banana, we produce 1.2 million tons a year. For my fellow Tanzanians, you will agree with me that there has been an increasing, actually tremendous increase in consumption of banana in the country, to the extent that the product is now becoming scarce. In the past, we used to see people from Kagera and Kilimanjaro consuming banana as part of their staples. But of recent, this has changed, of course, due to also nutrition issues. People now tend to shy away from food that has a bigger content of starch. Now, export trend is stable, although it was disturbed by the recent shocks from COVID-19, but also economic turmoil and recent Ukraine war. But export trend continues to be stable. We are having some new value chains in the country, like bitter gourd, long-yard beans, started like 2-3 years ago, but now we are having an increasing involvement of farmers and exporters. We are also seeing trends in increasing involvement of youth in the horticultural industry. Youth are more and more participating in the horticultural value chain activities, especially in production, actually in all nodes of the value chain, from production to marketing. Hadija is one of the typical examples of youth engaging in horticulture. And increase the investments by private sector, and by private sector I mean both international and national. You would find people like us sitting in offices also having farms in Jombe, in Kilimanjaro, and everywhere in the country. So we haven't been able to measure the size of investments, but the Ministry of Agriculture are estimating investments in a year to be at the tune of around 150 billion Tanzanian shillings, around 60-70 million US dollars. Market size is huge. Domestic market, we are over 60 million people. Regional market is also significant. SADC and EAC have a combined population of 570 million people. So you can imagine how significant this is. And when you take into account an FAO factor that we have to consume 0.14 million tons a year, you can imagine how significant the demand for horticultural products is, and especially now because people get more and more awareness on on value of consuming horticulture. As I am concluding now, just a highlight of challenges. Yes, we have strong opportunities. We have been talking about opportunities since the day I was not born, and we still have challenges. Of course, some of the challenges are relating to market support infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure. There is need to put more and more investment in this. We are having challenges related to post-harvest losses, high levels of post-harvest losses from 20 to 50%, but also challenges relating to access to finance. So I'll be happy to have contributions from the panel following my keynote address, of course addressing the areas that I have mentioned and beyond. So thank you very much.
Thank you. A round of applause for the keynote address speaker.
Let me take this on from here. Okay, so we've got to provoke you with some examples of different initiatives. And the idea is to provoke your thinking about, okay, this is what you're doing. Does this work for me? Does this work? Because there's a lot of youth in this room right now. So when you listen to each of these lightning talks, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that, just keep thinking, do I believe in this? Is this actually going to work to empower me, to enable me to grow my business? So we're going to start off with Shukuru from Hotculture, and he's going to tell you about AgriConnect.
Good morning. Yes, thank you, Mark. As I've been introduced, so my name is Shukuru. I'm working for Hotculture East Africa, and Hotculture East Africa is among of the partners who are implementing the EU-funded program called the AgriConnect. And for those who doesn't know, AgriConnect is a very big EU-funded program, which is covering 3 main value chains, which is horticulture, then coffee, but also tea. So for Hotculture, we are working under the component of horticulture, and we are implementing in southern highland of Tanzania. And the project is titled like Building Inclusive and Competitive Horticulture Sector in Tanzania, especially for southern island areas, specifically for the regions of Iringa, Njombe, Mbeya, Songwe, and Katavi. Speaking of the project itself, and thank you for Anton giving or providing some sort of challenges which is facing the horticulture sector in Southern Highland, but also in Tanzania as a whole. So the establishment of the AgriConnect program was aimed at solving to some of the critical challenges that have been mentioned by Anton. So for Hotculture, under the Building Inclusive and Competitive Horticulture sector, so we have around 3 or 2 objectives. One is to improve the performance of the horticulture sector in Southern Highland. I mean in the 5 regions of Mbeya, Iringa, Njombe, Katavi, and Songwe. But also increase the competitiveness of the horticulture sector in Southern Highland of Tanzania, complementing to efforts which have been done by SAGOT of preparing the business enabling environment in the Southern Highland corridor mostly. Another thing is to increase the profitability for those actors who are involved in the horticulture value chain, specifically looking at how smallholder farmers they are benefiting exactly from the horticulture sector in Southern Highland. So those are the areas of which I can say the program is really focusing. But we have around 4 research areas on how maybe are we going really to tackle these problems. So exactly, we are targeting to reach around 30,000 smallholder farmers, but also working with around 500 SMEs. But how are we going to do? So one is we are increasing the access of business development services mostly to the farmers who are engaged in the horticulture sector. So that's the one. But second is to increase the margins and improve the trading relationship among the actors who are involved in the horticulture value chain. So there, I mean the farmers, but also all the actors, let's say SMEs or buyers, input suppliers who are involved in the horticulture value chains. At the same time, making sure that there is efficiency in doing business in the overall value chains of horticulture in Southern Highland. But another component of which has been very critical, and we thought it was very important, is all about the business enabling environment. That's you can do each and everything, but if there is no business environment for the sector to excel, that will be also critical or can be a problem for the sector to grow. So we also found it's important to make sure we improve the business enabling environment through increasing the sector governance, but also the coordination mechanism among the actors involved in the horticulture value chain. But lastly is all issues pertaining the nutrition food security. As to most of you, you may know, and especially for those who doesn't know, Southern Highland is considered to be a basket of food for Tanzania, but at the same time, it's an area of which has been characterized by malnutrition. So large population, especially children, they are facing malnutrition problem. So we find how exactly the program is going to contribute with efforts to reduce the malnutrition rate in Southern Highland. But to finish, is we have approaches of which we use as to make sure we achieve all of this. So one is, let's say, professionalizing the farmer organization, but also the cooperatives who are working in the horticulture value chains. So you find that most of the organizational farmer organizations and the cooperatives, they are unorganized. So as a Ricoto, but also together with the partners, so we were working to make sure all the farmers, they are organized into groups and the cooperatives for them to easily access to business development services. But another approach is to build the strong network of business development services. That I mean developing and strengthening the BDS network in the Southern Highland to make sure they are able to deliver, to provide the services which is needed by the farmers. And lastly, to make sure market as an entry for everybody to enjoy the benefit for them to engage in the horticulture value chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our speaker.
Shukuru, take a seat. Because I'm sure you'll be asking questions, particularly about how does that include women, how does it include youth, but let's move on. Well done on saying lastly twice. Let's not repeat that tactic. Mary, do you want to go next?
Great, thank you, Mark. So my name is Mary. I'm the country director for Farm Africa here in Tanzania. And very, very briefly, Farm Africa is an organization that works across Eastern Africa, focusing on three main pillars of agriculture, markets, and the environment. So here in Tanzania, we've worked in the horticulture sector for quite some time, both working with smallholder farmers, women's groups, youth groups, farmers groups on production and primary production, but also with SMEs that work in the horticulture space on various value addition, export, and processing. So most recently, we've been working with NORAD on a program that's known as Delivering Expertise and Capacity and Investment to Developing Enterprises. So it's known for short as DECIDE. And this program looks at supporting horticulture SMEs on building stronger management systems, looking at business planning, looking at financial management, compliance, procurement, and operations, and then helping to leverage those improved capacities to then access finance and have better opportunities for finance. So really understanding and supporting the businesses to understand what are their financing needs, what do they need their financing for, where are they eligible, and the type of institutions they need to be approaching to actually receive that finance. And then finally, the kind of third objective of the program is around both upstream and downstream market linkages. So looking at supporting SMEs to engage directly with farmers and smallholder farmers as their suppliers, engaging in contract farming, supporting those suppliers to actually improve their quality and improve their quantity to have a guaranteed supply and a guaranteed higher quality product. And then of course also upstream market linkages around improving their both domestic and export potential markets. So in this program that we've been working since 2019, we've supported 55 different SMEs all across Tanzania. And the approach that we take is that once we've identified these SMEs, we do an enterprise capacity assessment, which really helps the business to see where are their gaps and where are their most prioritized needs. And we really make that an SME focused and an SME-centric activity. So it's not us coming in and telling them what they need. It's the business really identifying the gaps that they have. And then we work with external business development services providers, technical assistance providers, as well as providing mentoring and coaching directly from Farm Africa. And then we've also done some online delivery of various courses as well. So the SMEs that we work with work across the horticulture sector, but they're quite a variety of businesses. Some, mainly in northern Tanzania, are working with outgrowers for export veg. Some of the businesses are doing various processing, avocado oil, chili sauce, different kind of value addition activities. And then I think the really interesting thing is a lot of the businesses we work with are in the spice sector. And of course, I think one of the things in a lot of horticulture programming is that we kind of forget that spices are part of the horticulture value chain. A lot of programs focus on fruit, on vegetables. You know, we know avocado is really interesting, but spices I think are a really up and coming opportunity for Tanzania. There's a lot of increasing opportunity both within the export market, but also within the domestic market as well, especially for blended spices. So I want to talk about a couple of the key lessons learned to hopefully stimulate some discussion and some further questions. The first thing that we've really learned and kind of honed over time is how we select the businesses that we work with. So I think it's really important to have clear criteria to understand the size of the business, the turnover, how long they've been in operation, the level of formalization of that business, and then to work with key trusted partners to get referrals and to really understand who are some active businesses within the space. So we work with organizations like CEDO, with the Women Chamber of Commerce, with the Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture, to get those referrals and to really understand who are these active SMEs, and not just people who are operating a business, but people who really do truly have an entrepreneurial spirit and really that kind of desire and that interest to grow their business. And then also setting clear and realistic expectations between the business of what the program offers and what we are actually aiming to do, and also what we expect from the businesses in terms of their engagement. A second lesson that we've learned is around the way we actually deliver business development services. So when we first started the program, we'd identified a few larger BDS providers, generally that were based in Dar or based in Arusha, and they kind of had national coverage, and they would come in for a few days and support a business on financial management or developing a business plan. And we saw that while these BDS providers had a lot of really strong technical experience, it wasn't really that strong of a relationship with the SME. The SME kind of felt like they'd been told who they were going to work with, and they didn't really have a lot of kind of decision making in that process. So we tailored that process and we changed it to actually help the businesses go through a procurement process, so they were the ones identifying the BDS provider or the TA provider that they would be working with. And so that really provided a lot more ownership for the business. A lot of the BDS providers were actually closer to the business, based in the region, so it really helped to develop that relationship and really helped to make the support more successful. And then finally, I think any BDS program, we have to talk a little bit about willingness to pay and about match funding. A lot of programs, especially development funded programs, especially programs that subsidize BDS, provide all of that support for free. And I think, sometimes there's challenges around that in terms of market distortion, in terms of really getting the businesses to engage in the process. So throughout the course of the program, we actually implemented a 40% match fund requirement for all businesses for any support that they were being provided. So sometimes that was cash and sometimes that was in-kind contribution. And we were really pleased to see that all of the businesses we worked with were really willing to provide that 40%. They were really, we didn't have any pushback in terms of the businesses saying, they couldn't afford to, or they weren't interested to provide that. And I think that really helped the business to see the value of what they were receiving and to really feel like they were also a part of that process, and they were really, they were investing in the service as well.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, really thought-provoking stuff there, and also to a study that was done recently by ISF advisors that showed that when people pay for BDS, then you get much greater growth. Double, triple the level of growth that you would in subsidized services that are provided completely for free. So bear that in mind. Now we've heard from the development people. Let's hear from the private sector. Usually there's a different point of view, and Consolata is going to tell us.
Good morning, all. My name is Consolata Moshi. I am the founder and the CEO of Produce Tanzania, which is located at the Southern Highland part of Tanzania. We are doing cultivation in Southern Highland of Mbeya. We are doing cultivation of horticulture produce, whereby we cultivate different of horticultural produce with some of the outgrowers who are working with me, women outgrowers, and we have youth outgrowers like 225. We are working with them, they are cultivating their produce and selling to our company, and we link also with other suppliers to sell their produce. Around here, I'm here to talk about the approaches we are using to work with them and the inclusivity. How are we working with them? How are we sustainable? That's why I'm here today. I will talk about the approaches which we are using first. To work with them, there are some of the approaches which we can work. Women and the youth, they love soft job, they love sweet, smooth things to do. So we need to make agriculture soft, sweet, and simple so that they can work with us. So some of these approaches which we are doing, the first one is we provide market for them. When they cultivate their produce, they sell at our company. And if we have overcapacity, we link them with other suppliers. The other things is we provide some of the technological issues, technology, I can say technology and innovation to them. Like we train them how to fix the greenhouses, how to fix the drip irrigation systems into their farms, and if they got job to do an installation to other people, they do it as a work, so they can employ themselves. Other things in the approaches which we can do with them, we do the accessibility of the land to them. By most of women and the youth in Tanzania, they're not the owner of land. The land are owned by male. So we lend them the land, and after the cultivation process start, and when they get profit, they buy their land and return back the land to our company. The other things which we do, we give them the access to finance, we link them with different banks, so they get loans in order to move with their project. With all this, to move with our company to be sustainable, to be consistent all the time, to have produce, we need to be sustainable in financial, and I can say commercially, we are commercially for sustainable, financial sustainable, also environmental sustainability is applying there. That means we are assurance of the supply of water, we are assurance with the supply of capital there, so that we cannot let them down. Also in our company, we are as incubation of horticulture and nutrition incubation center. We train all the good agricultural practices at our company. We train to our outgrowers, women and youth outgrowers. We train them what to do, what to plant at what time, what the market now, all the things which are in good agricultural practices, the use of fertilizers, the use of soil, something like that. Thank you so much.
Great, and I think that was the most concise we've had so far. So we've got plenty of time for you to ask questions. Now, Anthony, could I ask you to join us up here? And I'm going to hand over to my colleague here to generate some questions from the audience first. You know, let's see what you want to know first, and then we will come back to some of the questions that we've been asking ourselves as well. So.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, before we start, when we wanted to start these sections, I was mentioning about the fact that it's not all about the panel discussions, but the most important thing is the critical questions and the comments that you make about what they've said. I mean, for instance, take the case study of what Consolata is doing. Seems to tick all of the boxes, from providing training to access to land, for financing some of these farmers as well. It's an incredible success story. So we would like to ask you, do you have questions for us or comments? Please just raise up your hand and I'll pass the mic around. So I'll go with you first and then I'll start with you as well. It can be directed to any of our panel.
Thank you very much for the time. And thank you very much for the presentation from the panelists. My name is Edmund Ringo from Matchmaker Associates. We are BDS providers. I want to direct this question to Mary, but I'm sure most of the development partners in the room can also respond to that. There's been a tendency when we want to choose SMEs to work with, we always use tools and criteria to choose the best ones. Now the point is we need to have a lot of consolatas, a lot of adijas and the like. But most of the time, the usual suspects are working with all the program development agencies. And we need to reach numbers, we need to feed Africa. So we need a multiple SMEs of the caliber of Consolata and the like. How are we going down the radar? Because I know you'll need more work in the BDS to make them also reach the level you are looking for. How are we going to have a critical mass so that Africa can feed the world? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's question one. Anybody can answer, but hold on to that first. I'll take your questions and then I'll come to you and then to you.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Bernard Liba Mkolimwa, one of the BBT beneficiaries from Biawana. First of all, I would like to thank you, Taha, for your support, because you have been supporting us from the start. Up to now, we are going to accomplish our studies because you have taught us how to prepare the farm, to know plant population, how to use pesticides and insecticides, up to harvesting. But my questions are going to be directed to all of you, and I want to know, which way now are you using to get these uses so that you can be supporting them in agriculture, especially horticulture? And the second question is, who are actually benefiting from what you are giving? I mean, maybe university rivers or youth is found in our streets, or who are actually benefiting? Because yeah, let me end there. Thank you so much.
So I'll take one more question because of our time, and then we can start with the response.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks to fantastic panel. I'm Dan Collison. I work for Farm Africa. Anthony talked about the very, very high levels of post-harvest loss in the horticulture sector. I'd love to know from you, Consolata, what's been working in your approaches to really reduce those levels of post-harvest loss, because that must make, it's a huge disincentive to the producers. It makes a massive impact on productivity. It's a climate issue. What really works in reducing post-harvest loss?
Excellent, thank you. So we want to start first. You
Sure.
can start, yeah.
Sure, I'll start. Thank you, Edmund, for that question. And I think it's a really important one, and it's one that we talk about a lot in terms of how do we identify good businesses. And also, as you say, a lot of times the businesses that are already being supported, they're fantastic, they're really well known. So we want to build on that momentum to really expand that network. I think one of the big things is around coordination and really kind of putting our heads together in all of these types of programs, using referrals like CEDO, TWCC, TCCIA, all of these sorts of networks that have pockets of great businesses and they're doing pockets of support, and to really kind of widen that coordination to then have referral systems to say, you know, Farm Africa works with relatively small SMEs. We're helping to de-risk these SMEs, so then they're able to access wider finance. Maybe they can graduate into a different program or a different type of support that they need. So I think that's one of the things. One of the things we've found has been really successful is using referrals from the businesses we already work with. And interestingly, when we first started the program, a lot of the businesses were really hesitant to work with us. They didn't really understand our role. They didn't really know what Farm Africa was going to provide. But over time, they really understand, you know, we're not here to provide the finance. We're not buying machinery. But this sort of business development support that we can provide really helps them to grow their business in other ways. And so once we have that momentum with really seeing the first few businesses kind of understand that, then we were able to much more easily find additional businesses. And I think maybe speaking to donors on that, you know, these sorts of programs can't be 1 year or 2 year programs, especially in terms of the way we're measuring our impact. Businesses don't just have instant success overnight. We need to see that slow growth, and we need to build that kind of body of evidence to show that these types of programming and this type of soft support can also work. And maybe I think it would be really interesting to hear from Consolata as well in terms of, you know, how do you think we can identify more successful and really engaging businesses like yourself? If you have other ideas on the types of networks we should be working with.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to ask Consolata to speak because I see that I have 2 questions directed to you. So if you just walk us through that, and yeah, we'll go to Anthony as well afterward.
Okay, thank you. I think I will answer the first question from that side. You asked me about post-harvest loss. How do we do with that? You know, according to the time, I have only 3 minutes. I didn't say that we do processing. We do food processing. We are adding value to our produce to reduce the post-harvest loss. So we are processing juices. We are processing leash for kids. We have kids food. We have a lot of horticultural produce which we process at our company. That's all, with all my outgrowers. That can reduce a lot of post-harvest loss by 90% of it. Yeah. The second one, how are we getting the outgrowers? We are working with the government first. The government give me the farmers who are at the interior places around the Mbeya district. We are still located in Mbeya. So we get those farmers mostly from government extension officers, because they are the only one who know a lot about who are the real farmers. You cannot just chip in and start the business. You can start the business the one who is not a farmer. So we are doing mostly we are working with the government at that side. And the other people who are giving me the farmers are development partners. I'm working with Hotculture. I'm working with Kilimotija, USAID Kilimotija, who are the one who bring me here today. So they are helping me much. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anthony, I'm going to come to you because I see that there's a huge praise that comes to you when the youth were talking about how they get involved and all of that. So you might want to answer some of these questions from the perspective of TAR, and then we can just hear you out.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, firstly on post-harvest losses, yes, it's a huge challenge. To have post-harvest losses adequately addressed, you need an integrated bundle of solutions. You need to address solutions from production, what type of seed, and the quality, overall quality of planting materials that farmers use. The technologies and practices, harvesting, infrastructure like holding facilities, transportation, and this is also associated with policy and legal framework. Because you go to an open market today, the way the produce is handled, and also the way the crop business is transacted, it is not appropriate. But still, we have some laws and policies governing this area. So we need a complete bundle of solutions. Now in Taha, we have started implementation of a project, namely Tuhifadhi Chakula. Tuhifadhi Chakula literally means let us store food. I'm happy that Chief of Party for the project is here. It is funded by the USAID. It is a 5-year project implemented in 10 regions in the country, covering both production and marketing ends. So it is critical, again, to ensure that farmers have access to these technologies, to inputs, and also access to finance is also key, so that farmers are able to get capital to access these technologies. About youth involvement, yes, it is critical for us as a country, not only youth involvement, actually, generally enterprises in horticulture. It is critical for us to create as many workable enterprises as possible. That is very important, because that also translates into adding to the size of the market, because these enterprises would always buy produce from the markets. So Taha, we have been doing that, and of course we also have our own criteria. We do announce, we invite youth to apply for the opportunities. We have incubation programs, and that way we have so far created over 200 youth doing businesses in horticulture, but a lot more needs to be done. And this government move to engage more youth in horticulture through BBT, it is highly important, and I'm happy to say that we are also part of the BBT program. This will really create hundreds, if not thousands, of new enterprises in horticulture. Because one of the challenges that we have in the industry is a limited number of off-takers. Companies or people like Consolata or Hadija who would connect to the farmers and procure produce from them.
Excellent, thank you. Let me come to you, because when you gave the keynote message, you really went into some of the details about your work around this subject that we are discussing. And when you looked at the discussions that the young people, or the question they asked, it's their involvement. So we'd like to know, how do you involve them, and how does that take some of the basics of the work that you do? So if you can just help me pack the mic to you, so you can give us some of those overview of your work.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think I want to address maybe or to contribute to the question that have been asked by my colleague from Matchmaker. I think the selection of youth is a bit very challenging, I can say. It's not an easy thing. So getting the likes of Consolata or youth who you can think like they are very committed to business is not an easy thing. So taking an example for the Agri-Connected program, so how we are doing, or how we are facilitating this is one is understanding how other development partners they are they are doing on the ground. For example, when we started, we had a very good conversation with the Sagot. We used to have a very good conversation with the program called Mboga na Matunda, but we had a very good conversation with the Minister for Agriculture, understanding the strategies, but also the plans on how they are engaging youth. So now, coming to how at the program, how are we really engaging youth to make sure we get the likes of Consolata. So for us, we even started from the scratch, looking to who are the youth who are interested to engage into horticulture value chains. So in most cases, you find that youth, they are not very interested to engage into agriculture only because they think the business in horticulture is only at the production level, which is not the case. So as the program, so we decide to find a way of establishing the so-called an incubation program, where we call it Generation Food Program, and we roll out a call for proposal for each interested youth to come up with any business ideas that they think this can be a solution in tackling to any problem which is in the horticulture value chain. That is from production up to the consumption. Then from there, we are able to select them who have very interesting, but who have very good proposals that are really going to tackle one of the critical problems in the horticulture value chain. And one of the area which is very critical was on the post-harvest loss, of which my colleague was explaining. So we were looking to who are the youth who are coming up with a very innovative technologies, but also businesses which are going to solve some of the challenges which are in the nodes of the value chains. So that's one way. But then youth, even if you are going to provide them with the capacity building on how to start their businesses, on how to run the businesses, in most cases you find out they are like ending somewhere. They are not growing. You can't see them, the likes of Adija, the likes of Consolata. You find they are like in the mid. So as a program, we said we need to have a coaching and mentorship program for them to continue nurturing, continue building their capacity for them to be able to run their businesses. So to do this, so we identify qualified experts, but also what we call experienced businesses, of which we attach them to those businesses for them to experience how others have managed to successfully run these businesses. We also thank you to Minister for Agriculture. RICOT also is a partner under the Building Better Tomorrow program, where we are able to involve in the selection of youth who are in the BBT program, but also a part of the BBT beneficiaries. They are part of the RICOT program that we have been running. So that's something of which we can say is very good when it comes to the coordination mechanism among ourselves. So it's not BBT who are doing their program on its own, but we are coordinating together to make sure all what we are doing is really aligning each other. So that's what I wanted to contribute. And lastly, is on the again on the post-harvest loss. At the program, we decided to have a specific intervention, which is really linked to how are we going to reduce the post-harvest. And this is linked to supporting SMEs who are really trying to reduce the post-harvest. So we are currently supporting very few, around the 5 SMEs, to support them through building a cold room facilities for them to make sure they reduce the post-harvest when buying produce from the farmers. Thank you.
Excellent. I'd like you to hold on to the mic for 1 minute, and you too, Anthony, because you got some of the responses that you are looking for. But I have something that I put on my left hand and I don't want to forget. You've talked really about this interconnectedness of all of the actors working together, right? You talked about the capacity and the hub that you are building. And then you mentioned about the call for proposals, but you did not mention the amount. Let's excite people with this amount. How much are you giving us? When you call out this proposal, when you fund this for you, how much are you giving these business ideas to fund? So this excites people want to ask more questions about this funding. Please, if you can just respond to that, and then yeah.
Okay. So after selecting youth, we do some sort of screening, as I said, to understand who are exactly youth we think they will be able to tackle these challenges. Because what we are trying to do is to solve the system problems and not just supporting an SME. So an SME who is coming up with an innovation, with a solution of which is going to really to tackle or to solve one of the problem in the nodes of the value chain, for us is really welcome. So in terms of the tickets that we are providing, so that depends on the weight of the proposals, the way it's going to come. But the way we are doing, for us, we are putting in as like a co-investment arrangement, of which as a program we are providing like a 40% investment to the business. And for youth who are coming up with their businesses, they are going to provide the remaining 60%. And the 60% is not only going to come from the youth themselves, but rather is going also to be supported from the bank. So we are saying 30% is going to come from the bank, and 30% is going to come from his own. So whatever, if he's owning the land, so that will be computed as the contribution from the youth. So mentioning about the exactly tickets, so it's the...
Give us a range.
Yes, the range. So it's the 60,000 euro up to 9,000 euro maximum.
Maximum. Excellent. Thank you so much. Anthony, let me come to you with the same question. You mentioned about the cover proposal. Is it similar?
Well, we don't have money to give. But
don't break our hearts.
we show youth and the other stakeholders, of course, pathways to profitable enterprises. So we connect them to the markets. We connect them to access to finance. Matchmakers, for instance, are working on that. We show them how to produce, how to process, how to access technology, and which types of technology that they should use in their respective businesses. And you know, we are a membership organization, and our membership is structured in a way that we have accommodated all actors in the value chains. So we have producers, we have exporters, we have service providers like input and technology companies, we have financial institutions, and we actually have agreements with some of the financial institutions to provide financing or credit to our farmers at special interest rates. And we also work closely with the government and link our beneficiaries to various opportunities that are available in the government cycles, but also in other development organizations like TRIAS. Yeah, we're actually working with TRIAS in Zanzibar. We're implementing same program that Hotculture is implementing the Southern Highlands. We are having it in Zanzibar. But anyway, showing the stakeholders the right pathways, I think, is extremely important for them to become profitable.
Very excellent. I know you want to make a comment, but I will start with you. I'd like to take one or two more questions from the audience. One and two. So I'll start with you, and you'll be the first to answer, Mary, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, it's not a question, but mchango. Pole kwa mswahili wa Kiswahili. Let me acknowledge Hotculture in Taha. I'm one of the beneficiaries of the food system, the Generation Food Program. Your pilot program there in Arusha, I'm one of the beneficiaries. And my area of interest is the food waste management. I'm a farmer. I also work with farmers, connecting them to the market. When you talk about the food waste, particularly in the horticultural area, the waste is higher compared to other crops, because we are talking of 40 to 60% waste. And in my little research that I did, the waste occur from the whole value chain, from the farm to the fork. The waste occur even after the fork. And the after the fork is where we normally don't give much, how do I say this, much attention. Because we tend to see that once it's on the table, that's no longer our business. But a bigger part of the loss and the waste is happening there. I've been interacting with people, asking them around, like, how much tomatoes do you use per month? And they give me the number. How much do you actually eat? It is almost a quarter of what they purchase. So we are speaking of 3/4 going to waste. And they complain like, oh, you know, the nowadays tomato varieties, they spoil easily and the blah blahs. So I'm calling upon everyone in the house right now that there is a really huge work to do, the advocacy. Just make noise that you are buying things, make sure you consume whatever it is that you buy, because there are people out there sleeping hungry, going to bed hungry, waking up hungry every day, not sure of if I'll get a cup of porridge. And there is us having access to that food, and it is going to waste. I've been observing even at our lunch every day. I look at how people will have these big portions of food, and 3/4, half of it going to waste. And I'm like, what are we here really for? Are we advocating something that we are part of the problem? We are creating the problem, and we are out here saying, you know, we are strengthening our food system. We are looking for ways to strengthen our food system. But what you are doing is you're sabotaging it yourself. So please, let this be a wake-up call to all of us. Whatever it is that put in your plate, please make sure you finish it. Whatever it is that you buy for consumption at your home, make sure that you consume it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we should make you a zero waste advocate, ambassador. Thank you. Yeah, I'll come to you for your question.
Thank you very much. Tom, Farm Africa. Going to the point that Mark raised earlier about the IS report, which showed that those businesses which pay for their business services experience greater growth. How do you, so it's a question of inclusion, how do any of the panelists navigate when we have larger funded entities, Acheli, which are giving free business advisory services to any business below $250,000 turnover per annum? So that's a question on how do you navigate that to have a consistent clear messaging, because there are network associations such as Mark's and others who are consistently advocating for lessons learned on some good research done at scale. And on top of that, do any of you directly then partner with formal banks who are practicing schemes such as concessional to formal financing? And by that I mean enabling small women and youth businesses to practice at 2% with a small loan successfully repay the loan and move up to greater levels of interest and volume? So 2 questions there.
Thank you so much. May I just kindly ask the speakers to please take the questions, the answers very fast because of our time. I will start with you.
Great, thanks. First, before I go to Tom's answer, I wanted to just make a quick point on youth engagement. And one of the things I always find really interesting is that youth in Tanzania is defined as people from 18 to 35. And that's quite a large range. And someone who's 18 is at a very different place in their life. They have very different access to resources. They have very different priorities than someone who's 35. And so I think we often kind of lump youth together as one heterogeneous body, but that's not necessarily the case. So we really need to think about, who are we actually engaging? What are the kind of targeted interventions we're doing for people at different levels, at different ages, at different kind of stages of their life? But also with that, thinking about how those groups together can kind of serve as mentors. So, if we're targeting youth who are 18, 20, 22, having older mentors who they can really kind of look up to. If we're doing group farming, having a mix of farmers, having a mix of people within those groups to really kind of serve those different purposes.
No, I'd like to start with you, and then we wrap it up with you. The final.
Okay, let me go back to the question, organizer. Can you come again, please? Can you come again, please, with your question?
How do you navigate a message when there's free business advisory services out there, when we've learned that actually businesses which are paying for services can experience greater growth? How do you navigate that? But I consider it to be a market distortion.
Elena, can you interpret, please?
Yes, and then there's a question, probably that question was directly for you, Mary, but there is a question on the inclusion that you asked the other time, right? You asked a question on inclusion. And I know that's one area where you're working on to include some of these actors like women and all of that. So you can probably talk more about that, where your work focus, but I think Mary already gave the answers to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very critical question, I can say. Actually, the free services that is provided by, let's say, the donors, the NGOs mostly, I think, yes, is providing like some sort of distortion. As the BDS providers, they find that they are unable for them to make money in providing the services. So that is true. But we see also there is a problem also among the development organizations, especially working with the same BDS providers with the double funding for them, maybe to make sure they provide the services, let's say, to smallholder farmers. So that is also a very critical thing. But how do we navigate it from that? I think one is whenever we are providing capacity building to BDS providers, we need to think on business perspective. For them to think that's their business, and they need to find the wings on how they are going to make money, and not depending much on the donor funded programs. So, and I can take example on the program that we are implementing. What we do is, whenever we are working with any BDS providers, so what we do is, even if we are subsidizing the services, what we do is to provide the 40% investment or funding to an SME, but the 60% is going to come to from the BDS provider himself or herself, to create some sort of sense of ownership among the BDS providers. So that's what we do. The second thing is to continue training, mobilizing the farmers or the actors who are in demand of the service to make sure they pay for the services. Currently, you see a farmer to pay for service is something like not unusual. So it's depending much on the programs for them to pay for them to get the services. So as the program, we need to go away from providing the free things, especially to the farmer, but also even to the BDS providers, for them to think on the business perspective. But I want also to hear from the exactly BDS providers from like matchmaker. Which percentage exactly, which maybe they are getting from the donors, but which percentage is coming, is really maybe being invested by the BDS themselves when it comes to delivering the service to the smallholder farmers? Yeah. And how do they perceive when it comes to the actors or the farmers buying the BDS services from them? Do you see them willing to buy the services from the BDS providers? Yeah.
Yeah,
thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I was going to coach you, but you finished right on time. We are way out of time by 5 minutes, but I will give you just 30 seconds if you can just give the final words, and then then I will ask Max to come on stage after that.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So information, of course, that can also be part of BDS. Is one of the gaps that we have in the horticultural industry. TAHA, we've established what we call TARIC information platform that collects, processes, and make available various types of data and information in horticulture: production, market prices, logistics, nutrition, etc., etc. So this information platform is available in both web, but also in Play Store as an app, and it will enable the stakeholders to get or to have ready access to information. Now, in a long run, we are going to commercialize some of these services or some of the information that will be available in this platform. So, Ada, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A very round of applause to our wonderful panel. And I will ask that we all kindly please come on stage. We would like to take a group photo. We have our official photographer here, and what we want to do is to just show some that this section is about youth and women inclusion, and probably we say some spicy or horticulture. Please, if you can just join us for 30 seconds, 1 minute, we'll wrap it up. But then, Mark, if you want to give some of the final words, or people want to learn more about your work.
Yeah, we're out of time, aren't we? So let me keep it simple. I think that what I've taken away from this is there's lots of difficult issues that we've only managed to get a little bit into over an hour, but we've got to work on these difficult issues if we're going to transform agriculture. You've got to get better approaches, and BDS is a critical issue, and making sure that there are mechanisms where SMEs provide, pay for some of those services, and I hate to say this, have skin in the game. And we've got to look for those coordination mechanisms. I mean, I heard today, from all of you talking about BBT as a coordinating mechanism. Why couldn't BBT be used as a way to coordinate the way in which BDS is used to bring youth into the horticulture sector? We could address some of these difficult issues through coordination mechanisms like that, and that's what I'd encourage. Look for those opportunities, and AMEA will obviously be here to support any movement in that direction. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Please come on stage. Let's have a group picture.